Recharge Zone Podcasts. I'm your host, Brent Doty, joined with my co-host, Ann Margaret. Hi, Ann Margaret.
Hi.
And we have a special guest today, Senior Modeler Logan Schmidt. Welcome, Logan.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So Logan is a modeler extraordinaire, but today we're talking to him about some other research interests he has, and that's his research in the Vadose zone, which is the name of our segment today. Another name for the Vadose zone is the unsaturated zone, and Logan's going to be going all into this, so don't worry. We're going to talk about his research interests, why the Vadose unsaturated zone is important, and all about that. So let's get going. So, Logan, can you explain a little bit about this unsaturated zone? What is it, where is it, and why should we care?
So the unsaturated zone is all of the material of the earth between the surface and the groundwater table. To back up even a little bit, in case people haven't thought about this, which sometimes they haven't, is that anywhere on earth, anywhere like on terrestrial earth, if you dig deep enough, you'll hit water. There's a water table somewhere everywhere in the earth. Sometimes it's deeper, sometimes it's more shallow, depending on where you are. But there's always water. There's always a zone of saturation somewhere in general. And everything above that water table is considered the unsaturated zone. And it's an important part of the hydrologic system. But it has you have to use different sort of physics to describe the hydrology of the unsaturated zone compared to the saturated zone, which is everything beneath the water table.
I like breaking it down like that.
Yeah. And so when you say saturated versus unsaturated zone, the saturated zone is essentially the aquifer, and then the unsaturated zone, even though we're saying unsaturated, that just means it doesn't have as much water as the saturated zone, right? There's still water in that zone, in the Vadose zone.
Yes, there is, in general, water in the unsaturated zone. And in general, you could consider it to be less accessible than water in the saturated zone. If you drilled a well into the saturated zone, water would spontaneously flow from the saturated zone into the well, and you could pump it out pretty easily. That won't happen in the unsaturated zone. A technical definition or distinction between the saturated and unsaturated zone is that in the saturated zone, the water is under positive pressure, and everything in nature moves down an energy gradient. That's true for the unsaturated and the saturated zone. The energy gradient for the saturated zone is almost always most strongly dictated by gravity, and so that's just water running downhill. In the unsaturated zone, the gradients are a little different, and the forces tend to make the water stick to the solid phase of the unsaturated zone, and so it won't flow out of it's more tightly bound. The water in the unsaturated zone is bound to I'm saying the solid phase. I haven't explained that. So another distinction between the unsaturated zone and the saturated zone is that you can consider the saturated zone a sort of two-phase system. The phases being the solid phase, which is the rock or sand, potentially, whatever earth material is comprising the wherever the part of the earth you're in. The unsaturated zone is a three-phase system where it has the solid phase, the liquid phase, and a gas phase. Gas in most unsaturated zones, those phases would be, again, the solid phase would be whatever minerals, rocks, or soil you're considering in that part of the world. The liquid phase is some water with whatever's dissolved in it. And then the gas phase would be typically something like atmospheric air.
Oh, interesting. And so I know you kind of described this before, but you said the unsaturated zone is kind of like a sponge.
Yes.
Okay.
Another sort of big picture thing I probably should have talked about off the top is that, the earth is like a sponge in that all earth materials are porous. Porous is an interesting word, but you can think about the pores in a sponge are the little holes in the sponge. All earth materials have little holes like that, and they permit fluids to enter and exit them. And